Well, hello from the side of the road. You know, the reason why some people act like the grammar police and correct someone's enunciation of words is because if you butcher a language or you use the wrong word or you enunciate the word wrong, then there is no clarification on exactly what you were meaning to say, honestly. Take, for instance, my dad. He's American, doesn't speak a lick of Spanish, and my mother, she's a Hondureña, and she is bilingual. Her native tongue is actually Spanish, so a lot of times she will say a word, and if she enunciates it different, it might mean something different. And so I'm always correcting my mother's English because, well, she didn't teach me Spanish, for one. And what I do is I ask her questions because I'm like, what do you mean by that? And I do the same thing with my husband because, you know, I'm used to talking to people that don't have English as their first language. ESL speakers, you know, this is why the gender ideology, gendered language, when you misuse pronouns in the English language, it is a problem because it changes the whole meaning of everything. And they basically want to water it down, make the language meaningless. This is part of terrorist propaganda. That's why I always correct people when they enunciate something wrong because, you know, it's not that I'm trying to be an asshole, but, you know, a lot of people would start making fun of my mom for enunciating words wrong when I was in school. And I fucking hated that shit. So, you know, and a lot of people did that, not just in school. You know, you go to the playground, you go to the park, you go somewhere, and it's like, you know, there is a huge... I grew up in Miami, Florida, okay? And there is a huge, you know, Spanish population, but even in the Spanish population, there is a lot of racism even there, because, like, you know, my aunt, she's Cuban, but she, you know, grew up in New York. Her mother and father are from Havana, Cuba. And so it matters what you say because it changes the meaning of what you're trying to say. And honestly, nobody's trying to be mean. They just want clarification. That's it. That's the only reason people are like, why you gotta be the grammar police? And it's like, dude, we're not trying to offend you. But my most favorite person that God created in this whole entire fucking universe is my mother. Hands down. She saved my life more than once. And I love her. She is my most favorite person, most favorite human being. I admire her. She pushes my buttons, oh my god. Everybody's like, oh, Mary, you hated Mom. You were always fighting with Mom. Bitch, please. Do you know what she did? Anyway. My mom had Parkinson's and breast cancer. And I called 911 because she lost her shit because me and David were fighting over the TV. It's my turn to watch TV. And then David grabbed me by the ankles, dragged me off the sofa, started beating the shit out of me. And when he started cussing and using foul language, my mother didn't care for that. And she started smacking him, and then at one point picked up a hammer, went chasing him down the entire house. Dave ran around in a circle from the living room all the way through the dining room, ran through the kitchen. This was also before they closed off that wall there. between the kitchen and converted like half of the kitchen for my brother's own room. Because Eric kicked Michael out of the bedroom there. Anyway, they were always fighting. And then Eric didn't like being so close to the ceiling because a cockroach fell on his face and he screamed because it walked across his mouth. He says it landed in there. And I had never heard a guy scream like a girl, but, you know, you'd think he wasn't born with balls. You know? That's how they take down a nation. They fuck over your language, man. And everybody wants to say, "Oh, white people, they oppressed us. Okay, we're forever the victim because you oppressed my ancestors." Well, guess what? The Arabs invented the slave trade. That's what you get out of... You know what I'm saying? They invented the fucking slave trade. Thanks, Egypt. I know they're a proud people. I've got Coptic Egyptian in me. I've got Jewish in me. I've got Neanderthal in me. I've got Western African in me. Okay? And people are like, gringa, oi, it's a gringa, gringa. And I'm just like, but my mom is Honduran. I know, I look like my pops, okay? Jabus. That has nothing to do with any of that. And I look white. I've got a lot of English, Irish, French, German. I think I'm pretty damn sure I've got Italian. I mean, I'm a mutt. I am a mix. I am a mutt. And I call myself that because I am very mixed. You know, I saw a lot of programming they used to play over there at Leawood Elementary School. I went there in the summer. I had to take math. And really loved all that stuff, like Reading Rainbow, all this other shit. That's great stuff. Today, parents are teaching their kids, you know, that it's okay to beat someone up, take their toys, push them out, make them feel unloved, unwanted because of their own inner personal feelings of having a slight superiority complex because they feel inferior. And this is a problem. Anyway. So. No. I think she's wrong when she says that, you know, people are doing it just to make them feel bad. It really isn't. People just want clarity when they're talking in the English language. I've got a brain injury, okay? In my frontal and parietal lobes. And it affects me. It does. The way I talk. And people are all like, learn to talk. So I do get it. I do understand. But I do understand also language is a very vital aspect of communicating every day. And this is the problem, is that there's not a lot of communication, and then some people are stubborn and hard-headed and don't want to fucking listen. My husband, you know, it says that he is a pansexual transgender lesbian woman. And I was like, what? What is that? I mean, I know about gay, bisexual, lesbian and shit. What is this? And then my supervisor, Sergeant Helmberg, his wife, is like, I'm non-binary. Okay, are you some sort of computer code? I mean, listen, we don't need to complicate this stuff with gendered stuff because students do not need to be exposed to sexual things until they get, you know, of a right age. Your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, but you're considered an adult at 18. You know? The problem with the world today reason why our language is getting fucked over by people who don't care to enunciate it right. And don't get pissed off, okay, if somebody corrects you. It's only because they want clarification. I'm always like, Patrick calls me 20 minutes sometimes because it's like, I gotta ask questions. I ask people all kinds of things. I like talking to people and understanding how they feel about shit. For my husband, though, he is terrible at communication. I wrote an English paper for him. I did his homework. And then he didn't turn it in. And I said, why didn't you turn it in? It's a really good paper. This is your thoughts and stuff that you gave me. And we put it down on a little word tree and made the whole thing together just because I helped you do the homework. You didn't want to turn it in. It's not like I wrote it for you without, with just my words. I mean, I was helping you express yourself. And he turned in something, and then he failed the class, and then he had to retake it. And then he had to pay the VA money back because, our GI Bill. And technically, language matters. Because then how do you solve a crime? You call the cops, and it's like, who did it? And a lot of times it's circumstantial evidence when people have stuff. A lot of times, not always, but if you don't know who did it and you can't describe the perpetrator, then how do you solve crime and get some justice? This is why they attack the language and sexualize everything. The Muslim Brotherhood wants to take over the world. They want everybody to be Muslim, and if you don't convert, off with your head. So, they enslave people. They own the human trafficking trade business. We're a minority in the world, white people anyway. I identify with a lot of different races and countries and people because they are family. Everybody talks about how crazy it is to believe in God, but, we came from... Even science has proven there's, all of the world's people can be traced back to, one woman. Think about that. And one man. But mainly that's why they have mRNA. DNA, that's the female genetic code. I mean, you can't change something that's down to your DNA and your bones. My husband, even if he committed genital mutilation, which, by the way, is an international humanitarian crime, they don't want to go to jail, man. These guys, they enslave people, they sell them into forced labor and forced prostitution. They don't want to go to jail for that. They are in league with, trillionaire sex slave owners, and everyone's shitting on Elon Musk and his friends, and it's like, why? And Josh, my supervisor, tells me that I'm wrong and that it's bad to, admire, that man. It's unhealthy, he says. And he wants me to open up my marriage and fuck him. Ha! I was like, bitch, I'm waiting to get married. I want to fall in love. And, you got a ring on your finger. People got no morals, ethics. Your moral fabric is is fucking twisted. Some people, anyhow. So if people correct your enunciation of words, it's because it is our language. I don't know any other language. And then they invented a language called Ebonics in California. And it's like, okay, it's butchered English. But, you know, even down here in Miami, they got Spanglish. I'm sure that's everywhere. I mean, you know, when you only know one language and then you hear someone else speaking another language in your house. You know, my mother spoke her native tongue. Whenever, you know, my tia Keta or tia Alicia would call from Honduras, my mom would be like, hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué tal? And she would throw all the papers all over the room. She would, you know, she loved her papers. She collected newspapers, my mother. And she's like, I'm not done reading that. This is good stuff. You know, my mom was very intelligent, very highly intelligent person. She graduated at 18 with a college degree in Honduras. She didn't get her first pair of shoes until she was 11 years old. And people want to tell me that because my mother is Jewish, that I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Patrick, Josh, Kat, all these fuckers. And it's like, you know, my mother's also got, you know, she's kind of like mestizo because she's got the African and the Jewish, and she's also got Mayan too. She's got indigenous. And Catherine Helmberg is part of Grand Ronde Indian Reservation, and she's all like, no, you're not indigenous. You're not you know, like that. And it's just like, they're not a real tribe. What? Excuse you? They say that about Jews, too. I'm Jewish by blood. It's on a DNA test, and people say, oh, it is a very ethnic thing, and it's from the Middle East, the Levant area. And I'm very proud of it, because every time I read the Bible, I know I'd be reading about family history. Anyway. I was having some breakfast this morning. I gotta find my Tums. You know, world-class doctors didn't tell my parents that I had a congenital heart birth defect. Communication's very important. It's good to know who you are talking to. People get offended. They're like, "What do you got to know? What's in my pants?" But then they're like, you got to say, oh, they, them, he, she, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I did a brain fart because I got a brain injury. It's like it left me here. We need clarification because, you know, my husband, for instance, wanted to take a minor on base at Hill Air Force Base. And I said, no, we're not doing that. We don't know his parents. They know that he's over here at end zone, safe. But the moment we take him away from that safe zone where they know where he's at because he verbally told them, that is inappropriate, highly. I don't care what your intentions are. You don't take someone's child without conferring with the parents first. And this is another problem with, you know, the gender ideology cult and everything else. And people want to say, oh, you can't wear this hairstyle, you can't do that, you can't do this. Oh, you want to restrict everybody because they're already treating you like slaves, folks. That's what they're doing here in America. They think they own you. They think they can tax you if you don't want to convert. And everybody else just wants money. They just want to extort you. Just saying. I mean, I'm an Iraq War veteran. take it for or leave it, whatever you want. So you guys want to believe some idiot, Michael Moore, who's getting paid by trillionaires, and you guys are mad at Elon for being a billionaire. Man, they could buy out every fucking business they wanted if he didn't keep his shit straight. And honestly, I think this whole thing with the Everglades being sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, Roundup and stuff, is so that, you know, they can blame it on Trump and his friends and everybody who's in office right now. You know, because if they don't get in trouble, you know, the Fish and Wildlife's got some developers on its board. They're already people are ruining, you know, this planet, and we gotta take care of it because there's no backup. Where are you gonna go if you fucking blow this shit apart in the smithereens? Fucking, you know, poison it until it dies. Where are you gonna go? You're going to slowly suffocate as the planet implodes or explodes or gets sucked into some black hole. If it ever, you know, we got a black hole behind our sun, and solar flares, you know, are a big thing. And people are like, my Wi-Fi went out. My internet don't work. Listen, it's solar flares, baby. It's solar flares. It affects all kinds of things. So, just saying. Anyway, language matters because if you don't have communication, you don't know. My husband wanted me to sue UCSF for not being told, my parents or me, that I had a congenital heart birth defect, and he wanted $10 million. He wanted me to sue them. I found out after a recruiter's assistance. And I didn't meet Patrick until I got to my first duty station. And when I had my surgery, my heart surgery, he'll constantly tell people, oh yeah, you remember that time, Mary, when I helped you when you had your heart surgery? No, because I was dating this guy named Charlie. Charlie. I was dating this guy named Charlie from my basic training flight. You know, I don't remember my wingman's name, and we deployed together. I can't. I mean, if she walked up here to my door and was like, hey! Can I have a cigarette? I'd give her one and I wouldn't even recognize her. I'm just saying. So, communication matters, especially to those who have disabilities. You know, you guys don't understand that some of us out there, like my brother, we think he's autistic all his life, you know. Communication matters because intent matters. We need to, you know, we need to make smart decisions. If your intentions are bad, that's a red flag. So if you are cruel to animals, that is a telltale sign. That should be everybody's red flag. And, you know, my husband didn't tell the Air Force that he had ADHD, and that was on the questionnaire when you fill it out, when you're over at MEPS. So, technically, he could get into trouble for that. I don't know. Maybe the statute of limitations protects him on that shit. I don't know. It's just like they put a limitation on it because they're like, yeah, your justice is not important. I think that's some bullshit and it needs to change. You know, think about this. If God, Satan, heaven, and hell exist, why take a chance at risking an eternity of hell? It's always better to get right with God while you're here, because if you only live once, let's make it a good one.